But of course, the big worry has been Neymar. An injury to Neymar. He picked up a bad ankle injury, now coming back into the fray and seemingly ready to take his place in the team again. Earlier this morning, over breakfast no less, I caught up with Neymar's father, Neymar Santos Sr.
When he comes back, will he be ready? Will he be ready to play again? Will he be at his best?
Olha, o importante é ele estar em campo, né?
The most important thing is he come back to the field and best to the best when he was before the injury, and when he come back again, he do the best every time. He will do his best.
Does Neymar's father feel that Brazil, with Neymar or not with Neymar, will win the World Cup?
É difícil você dizer isso, né? Porque nós somos uma parte.
He likes father is not common to talk because he's a suspect, because he loves his son, and it's complicated to talk about Neymar. But everybody knows that Neymar is very important, a great reference in the field. And the other colleagues, when Neymar is in the field, is totally different because he's the number one, and we know the Neymar importance to the group.
Neymar is loved all around the world, and he has many fans in London. What message does he want to give Neymar's fans back in England and the UK?
Primeiro que as pessoas tenham confiança porque ele vai estar nas oitavas de final.
I believe that Neymar will be in the field again in the final match, and he will do the best. He'll do the best to win the World Cup, and together his colleagues and the Brazilian team, and he will do the best to help him and together win the competition. And he loves all the fans around the world, and especially in the UK, and he knows he's beloved, and the loved is the same for the fans, because if there isn't the fans, there isn't Neymar. Neymar loves everybody and loves the fans.
Can I ask him one final thing? Can he give me a message on behalf of all the fans around the world of Pelé, who is very ill?
Puxa, nós brasileiros amamos Pelé. A nossa referência principal.
For him, Pelé, and for everybody around the world, Pelé is the most icon alive. And for the Brazilian people, it's not just to the Brazilian people, but the people around the world is an unbelievable man, an unbelievable soccer player. And all the people around the world loves Pelé. And he hope that Pelé soon come back and keep well, and to your wish the Pelé to the best.
That was Neymar Sr. speaking to me earlier on this morning. Actually, the mood around the table changed when they started talking about much-loved Pelé. And everybody here at this World Cup is hoping that he comes through what has been another illness scare. Danny, number one is Brazil's name on it. Number two, where is your head with Neymar in terms of greats of the game? Is he one?
It depends. I suppose how do you interpret greats? Yeah, he's a special talent, really special. Has he fulfilled his potential, what he could? I mean, at Barcelona for a while he was, because he was winning everything and he was contributing to that. Part of one of the best front threes ever, apparently. You know, he's a super talent. Somebody I really enjoy watching, but I don't know. I suppose if he wins the World, if he comes back and they win it and he contributes, then all of a sudden he goes up another notch. I mean, he's in my lifetime, he's been one of the greats. Yeah. In my era.
I mean, obviously, the Messi and Ronaldo are regarded as the top two, and they're both here. Neymar is here. And certainly the buzz around the hotel when people start talking about Neymar, you know, you can see it amongst the Brazilians, especially the fans.
But I
think
the reason he's not hit the heights of those two is because he can be for 2 or 3 games on their level and look just unplayable. And then for 2 or 3 games he drops. He disappears a bit, he doesn't quite fancy it. And Messi and Ronaldo have never done that. They've just been consistently hitting numbers and winning trophy and doing, you know, that's why they're there and he's there. But in terms of ability, he's up there.
I mean, I have to say, Simon, his father was delightful this morning, and you turned your nose up a wee bit when you heard, a message to the fans because you're much loved back in the UK. He is.
I mean, they've commoditised Neymar. He's a remarkably talented player, but you don't, at this stage in your career, I mean, you understand why Kylian Mbappe's there, because he's French. You don't land in PSG, with all due respect to Nasser Al-Khelaifi and his football club, and if you are there for any other reason than the potential gains that you get because you've been at Barcelona, you've been at the arguably the elite football clubs, and you're going in a different direction. I find the Neymars of the world. First of all, I believe that. You should provide for your children.
You think he's paid too much money?
First of all, yes. I also believe that my job as a parent is to provide for my children, not for my children to provide for me. So I have a very different view about the dynamic of the relationship between father and son and how that works out.
They were an extremely poor family.
I'm sure they did. And and the vantage point of how he's now monetizing his life through his son is not something I like to see. But
is he necessarily doing that?
Well, he is, yes, because he's incredibly wealthy as a result of his son's talents.
But the people around that table tell me this morning, Neymar trusts his father. He trusts his father so much,
and that's fine. But you're asking me my view, and I don't like it. I don't like that. I think the son goes on and makes his career and earns his living and so on and so forth. And I look at it and say that's not something I'm comfortable with.
But if he's not going to trust his father, who is he going to trust?
Well, okay, that's a different part. That's a different discussion. You can say the same thing about Jude Bellingham's father giving him advice. There's a point where you're giving. There's one thing giving your son advice, another thing handling your son's commercial affairs, and more often than not, that's because the person that's handling his commercial affairs gets some sort of benefit from it. But let's move on from that and look at Neymar, the footballer. And I find him sort of part of a wearing generation of players that seem to be overly difficult to manage and overly difficult to control or to have an understanding of where their place in the food chain is. And Mbappe can fall into that category as well when we start to hear things about how he'll only play in perhaps a certain position, how Neymar will only play in perhaps a certain position, how they will not want to play for a particular sporting director, and so on and so forth. And I can't help, and maybe it's just a very sort of Luddite mentality, or maybe it's just because I've been an employer rather than an employee. I look at it and say there's a food chain here. But of course, when you're moving into the territory, like we discussed yesterday, that players are getting paid £200 million a year, the game has changed and the dynamics of the game have changed. It's a very different set of rules.
But you're seeing it here though, Simon. Yeah. We're talking about global stars.
Yeah.
We walk in that mall, you walk by a bunch of Brazilian fans, and next to all of them, almost all of them, have Neymar Jr.
I get
in the
it.
back.
I mean, I'm cut from a different cloth. There's been very few people in my life that I've looked at and gone, oh, I really admire them. I see him as a footballer, a very talented footballer, nothing more, nothing less. But I do realise that in certain parts of the world, it's almost a religion. I do realise that in certain countries, specifically and explicitly Brazil, they will look at these people in a certain light. I look back on the Pelés of the world and the Rivalinos and the Garanchas and players, and I think they had some elegance. I look at the modern generation of football, and I think most of the time they're a bunch of tattooed Herberts.
Well, you know what? You make a good point, actually.
I'm sorry, I know it's very blunt, but that's how I look at it.
Let's look at the exceptions to the rule. And if you've seen enough of Messi over the years, now he's in his mid-30s now and he doesn't run about as much.
Yeah.
But Messi's application and dedication to the sports in his career and the way he speaks about Guardiola's influence on him and the work ethic and the way other people speak about him suggests to me that Messi has been brought up by a certain type of parent, which I think what you were talking to.
Yeah.
My understanding, I mean, you've met Neymar's dad, but my understanding that Kylian Mbappe's father's very heavily influenced in his footballing world, if you like.
Because they're closest to them.
Which is fine. Is fine. And that there is...
Look at Erling Haaland.
Yeah.
Alpha Inga Haaland.
And look at the monies that have been carved out for their fathers.
But that's inevitable, though, Simon.
It's crap. It's got nothing to do... There's no reason for Inga Haaland to get paid 20 million quid, and there's no reason for it.
No, but let's just give that... There's a nuance to that in the fact that someone would be getting it. It's not...
Simon, you've earned a lot of money in your time. Did your family benefit?
That's not the point.
That's a different dynamic.
That's the entire point.
I didn't represent them commercially, or they didn't represent me commercially in an opportunity to be able to monetize themselves at the same time. So whatever gifts I may have given them is different.
Haaland's dad, and I don't know him, he looks like he's raised a very humble, great work ethic guy who's super determined to be the best, and let's hope that continues. So it's not so much relevant to me that the father's involved. It's the influence they're having and the intention and why they're involved. Not all fathers have the same intention.
It just feels there's something about it.
It feels a little bit.
It feels a little. Yeah,
it does to me.
Yeah, I'm glad we're in the same space, Danny.
It does to me.
Maybe it's because Neymar's a maverick, and maybe you're not having that.
Neymar.
Yeah.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with being a maverick. Some of the greatest geniuses in the world come from a position of being mavericks, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the opportunity. With the greatest respects in the world to a great interview that you've got, I'm not that interested, and lots of people are, and you're going to get cross with me. I'm not that interested in hearing Neymar's father's view on the world.
I can only think, I'm not Neymar and Mbappe, but when I was playing Premier League football for the club I love, when I was at Liverpool, which was high profile, if my dad even thought about doing an interview, he would be getting told to pipe down, be my dad. He wouldn't be getting involved in any contract negotiation, and he would not be going in front of a camera, nor with my mum.
Yeah.
And that's I mean, did you ever see Stevie Gerrard's dad on the camera?
No, I agree. But some of these characters, Messi is one. Father's never out of his sight. Neymar Jr. is another.
I couldn't tell you what Messi's dad looks like.
No, but he's behind the scenes all the time.
To be fair to Jim, he's right. When the big furore and Sky were making holics of camping outside his house about when he was going to leave, and he actually didn't, you got to hear from Messi's father all the time. He was a big part of it, attending meetings and so on and so forth.
Fine, but the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And if you look at Messi's the way he's conducted himself and been a team player for so long and the success he's had, that suggests to me his dad's in it for the right. He's a good dad.
I'll be interested if we get in the lift later on, as we do back in our hotel with the likes of Batistuta, Del Piero, if Neymar Senior's in the lift. And you can explain to him the phrase tattooed Herbert.
I could.